Yo, what's happening, everybody? We are back with another episode of Too Much Fantasy Football here on the Fantasy Football Advice Network. It's Brian and Brenan here to break down our wide receiver tiers. Brenan, how are we doing this evening?
Oh, just another night in paradise. Following the Harrison Bucker rules of making sure my wife stays in the kitchen.
Hey, that's the nice thing right now. I put my foot in my mouth all the time, but nobody does it as good as him. But what do you expect?
Yeah, I know. Dude, he is one bright cookie, let me tell you.
Hey, I've never even heard of the college. How big was this auditorium? I want to see how many people were actually even here that are listening. What was it, a dozen and a half? Not to take away from people that graduated there, but still, come on.
Hey, man. It still amazes me that he's the number one selling jersey right now, too, which is hilarious.
People revolt in the weirdest ways,
They do. They really do.
But you know what? How we revolt, we take great wide receivers, because today we are talking about our wide receiver tiers, and we've got to figure out where the top tier is, where that line is drawn between which wide receiver. And we're going to go ahead and start it off with, let's just go ahead and say our top tier, because it's the top four that we both have. Go ahead and let us know, what do we have, or top five, I'm sorry. What do we have in that top tier?
So for me, I think you and I actually have the same exact tier breakdown. So mine is safe and secure as wide receiver one. Again, these guys play 17 games. They're going to finish as wide receiver one. Doesn't matter. Even with a bum quarterback, they will still be a wide receiver one because that's how dominant they are. But it's CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Amon-Ra has entered that category now for me.
I think so too. Amon-Ra, as much as we say it, I don't like him as my wide receiver one. I know it's hard to make it where he's your wide receiver two, but it's hard for me to want to trust that. But he is in just this insane category with the touchdowns that this guy will be pulling in, and the amount of targets he gets from his well-paid quarterback there in Detroit. Goodness, $53 million a year for Jared Goff. What do you buy in Detroit? What do you spend your money on? Sleds? Skis?
Snow equipment?
It has to be.
I don't know. I don't know.
You're not putting a pool in, that's for sure.
I guess a bunch of Ryan Gosling posters, since he looks just like him. I don't know.
This is he's got one above his bed, just staring up there, sure. Just trying to bring it in every night. Yeah, all right, exactly. So our next tier, you got a bigger one than I do. I've got three in my next tier. It's going to be Puka, Garrett Wilson, and AJ Brown. These guys are as close you get to that top tier as you can. I think there are some limitations on what's happening. I think just Matthew Stafford's health in general, I think, has to be a little tick away from Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp's still there. I think he still has it. I think he's going to be demanding a high target share, so I think that kind of caps him a bit. Garrett Wilson, we haven't seen a lot of average depth of the target on this guy, so until he gets to really cut loose with Aaron Rodgers, hopefully, I don't see them in that top tier, but these guys are great. You feel very comfortable if you go running back first and you're able to get them as maybe your second player off the board.
Yeah, so for me, my next tier of five guys is the potential to be the wide receiver one. I see all these guys could definitely end up as the number one wide receiver at the end of this year, it's Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, and then I have two guys who've entered this category. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London. I guess the more standout obviously would be Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London. Would you be really surprised at the end of the day if Marvin Harrison Jr. broke all of Puka Nacua's records for rookies, yards, receptions, touchdowns, everything?
I think it's in the realm of possibilities, but honestly, I would be surprised if he did it. Those records were there for a long time for a reason. Granted, we've got an extra game, so it kind of gives you a little bit more of an advantage in that, but to replicate what happened there, it takes quite a bit, and there's not a whole lot of other people to take from targets. Trey McBride, yes. So is it out of the realm of possibilities? Absolutely not. I think if anybody's going to be doing it or stands a chance to do it, Marvin Harrison Jr., yes, but I really don't like Dynasty. If you have the two of these guys, Marvin Harrison Jr., you're hoping he's going to be who Puka Nacua is. So wouldn't you be taking Puka over Marvin? I don't know. It's proven already with one, and we're absolutely hoping that it's going to be with Marvin Harrison. So I don't know.
If someone offered me Puka Nacua for Marvin Harrison Jr., I think I'd take Marvin Harrison Jr.
But is that just the flash of the name? If this was
yes, but also I think what I saw at Ohio State for 2 years was thoroughly impressive, and he did it with two different quarterbacks. when CJ Stroud was at his pro day, they were, watching him, but they were also watching Marvin Harrison Jr. at the same time. They literally said it was like window shopping at a Lamborghini store. It was the exact quote from a lot of GMs. So like to have that high of a praise, like, I mean, I just, when you watch him play, and like, had he not, I guess it was 2021 or 22 when they played Georgia for the playoffs, had he not got injured, I think Ohio State wins that game. Like, I mean, he was that much of a difference maker. So
I think we froze. We might have froze.
There we go.
Okay. Ohio State was going to win that game, was the last thing I heard.
Oh, yeah. So, had a little bit of lag here. But, yeah, so as I was saying, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr. plays that game, finishes it out. He ultimately is the reason why they win that game. But, again, like, going to Drake London was the 8th overall pick, I mean, in the draft with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, unfortunately Treylon Burks. But, I mean, like, again, like, he was the first wide receiver taken ahead of these guys. And I think when he gets a competent quarterback like Kirk Cousins or even Michael Penix, I think he has the chance to actually be a number one wide receiver in the NFL.
I sure hope so. I'm rooting for both these guys. I would love to see them being drafted amongst that top 5 next year. But I guess I just want to make sure I keep myself in check, because every year that hype gets to us, Bijan, we were taking him as a top 3 running back. There was all the hype. He's so good. He's so talented, and he is. But there are circumstances that they can't control, and we need to, I guess, just respect that those things can take over. Like, there are things that they can't control and can kind of cap them from doing that. So
sure, I do agree with that. My only thing would be for that, I guess, is that Arthur Smith isn't coaching either of these guys. So like, I'm perfectly fine with
you got me there. That. You got me there. Hey, that's why we're talking about Drake London, is because exactly. That Arthur Smith got the hell out of town. So
exactly,
I don't fault you for it. I'm just trying to make sure that I get too overhyped. I guess Drake London too. I was so excited for him going into last season. So again, I'm trying to keep myself in check a little bit. My next tier I have, it's going to have Marvin Harrison and Drake London in there, but also I've got Debo, DJ Moore, and Nico Collins. I think all 5 of these guys are going to give you wide receiver 1 weeks. They're going to give you those spike weeks. There's so much talent there, but as far as consistency and what I feel comfortable with, I like them more as upside wide receiver 2s, high end to middling wide receiver 2s, just because there are things that there's only 12 number 1 wide receivers. There can only be 12. And there's going to be some guy with an ADP of wide receiver 30 that's going to fall in there. Probably a guy from wide receiver 40. So we've got to find a way to kind of tier these guys. And I mean, honestly, that's what we're doing here. See how that works? It
all comes together. I will say, like, for you on your side, like, so you think Nico Collins comes out on top as the number 1 guy for the Texans? Like, he is the guy. It's not. Is it close, or is it?
I think that Collins and Dell will be close by the end of the season once everything lines up. But I think you're going to get more consistency out of Nico Collins, and just the size too. I just think that he's going to be able to command more targets than Tank Dell, and I don't know, just a gut thing, I guess, at this point too. I'm still digging into those numbers, but
when we get to my side, you'll see it there. My next tier is I could be a wide receiver 1, but I'm better off being your wide receiver 2. It's guys like Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, and Mike Evans are all in this tier. So if you walk away with the draft and you have them as your wide receiver 1, you're like, it's okay, but you don't feel great. You feel so much better about them being your wide receiver 2, and I think this is where they fall into that category of being, it's a better mix for them.
I like that. I've got my next tier below the one I was just talking about. It's essentially got the cleanup of the rest of your guys: Brandon Aiyuk, Adams, Olave, Pittman, and Mike Evans. I think all of those guys, very, very talented, great situation, but the red flags are getting brighter. They're getting bigger at this point as we're coming down the list. You have Devontae Adams and Mike Evans with the age. They're going to fall off. They're over that 30 cliff. It's going to be any season now, and it's, does that hot potato, does it burn you if you grab it? Michael Pittman, he's got a different quarterback. There are going to be a different situation. We have more talent with A.D. Mitchell being added, so and he doesn't finish in the top. You know, like he finished as a wide receiver 1 last year, but it was because he did enough consistency at the low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. You know, Michael Pittman won't ever finish as a top 5 wide receiver.
No,
I don't see that ever happening.
Just how the offenses ran too.
Absolutely. It's not taking away from his talent. It's a lot of just situation. And the Brenan Aiyuk, it was an outlier. I think it was a very outlier season last year. If you look at the numbers, his average depth of the target, it was just insane. And I don't want to bring up last year's. Brock Purdy's just not that talented. But can Brock Purdy continue to perform at this high level? It's just the numbers. Shanahan's a cheat code. I hate it. It's hard to talk against it. But just statistically, you have to look at it. There's a higher than not chance that they don't replicate the amount of production that they have.
I mean, hey, everyone believes in what they want to believe in. I'm a Brock Purdy truther. I have no problem admitting that. Like, he is good. Like, he runs Shanahan's system to a T.
For sure.
So I have faith in him as a quarterback. I think Brenan Aiyuk, I think the world of him, but I do think it's going to be hard to repeat that when they also added in, you know, a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who they took in the first round, who they want to probably mix into the offense later in the year. So I think targets start to get interesting when it comes to that time of like, what is their true identity going to be when it comes to week 12? Like, what are they doing? Because like, it was Brenan Aiyuk and they just kept riding the train. So they kept doing that. He was the second option, obviously behind CMC, but obviously, you know, if they take a guy like Ricky Pearsall, they can start moving him in, making a little more gadget plays for him. So who knows? I'm a little more bullish, I guess, on Brenan Aiyuk, but I don't hate it for that aspect of where you're looking at him. My next here is the Houston Texans trio. So they're all the same for me. It's Nico Collins is my number one. I'm agreeing with you. I think he finishes number one receiver for fantasy. Then it's Tank Dell is my 2, and Stephon Diggs is 3. I don't hate anybody if you take Stephon before the 2 or you take Tank before the 2. It truly is like a gut call for like, what do you think is going to happen? And I think the consensus, though, is a lot of people agree that Nico is probably going to be the more dominant alpha receiver out of these guys. And then Stephon finds his role, and then Tank is somehow 3rd. But I think Tank finishes 2nd in the pecking order.
So do you think will all 3 of these guys finish within a like 12 wide receiver slots?
Like wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, like in the 12, 24, 36, is that what you're saying? Or
like, do you think there will be more than a 12 positions? Like if Brenan Aiyuk finishes as wide receiver 12, do you think the other 2 will fall between the next 12 picks or the next 12 wide receivers?
Yeah. Ooh.
Like how I think it'll be close. We'll see this group.
I think Nico, I think just because there's so many mouths to feed, and like you might run away with a guy who's going to be top 12 just because of just how dominant he's being. I think there'll be 2 closer to next to each other, and there'll be 1 at the bottom. It's just like a forgotten cause, and it might just be because of how the systems ran, and we don't know which guy that will be. But I'm leaning it's going to be Stephon Diggs will be the guy forgotten. So
yeah, I think that we can get top 30 finishes from all 3. But I think Stephon Diggs is going to struggle to get there. It might be on the back of touchdowns for him. You know, He might be a red zone threat down there for him, despite, you know, just the way he plays. He has that ability.
Yeah.
My next tier I have is these, you know, we're getting into these wide receiver 2s, but they have that ability. We've got Cooper Kupp, we've got Tank Dell, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper. Deontay Johnson belongs up here. He just does. Like, it's not fun. It's not sexy. It's the Carolina Panthers. And I know I said it. I didn't mean to put a guy this high, but all of these guys are playing with other talented receivers. Amari Cooper, maybe we don't say that quite there just because Jerry Jeudy. But there's, you know, Njoku's there. But Deontay Johnson's being criminally undervalued. Wide receiver 43 right now in best ball. Wide receiver 43 in best ball. And he finished as wide receiver 43 last year. So I get it. We're buying him right where he should go. Wrong. He only played 11 games last year. So you're telling me with a full schedule he can't finish? I just kills me. But you know what? More for me. More Deontay Johnson for me.
Yeah.
But these group of guys, if you can get them as your wide receiver 3, I think you're sitting pretty because these guys will give you boom weeks. They're touchdown man, right?
Yeah.
Cooper, Dell, maybe Dell.
Yeah. My tier, it's kind of the same guys. My tier is the potential is there and it's scary. So it's Cooper Kupp is the top of the list, DK Metcalf, Malik Neighbors, Amari Cooper, and George Pickens. I'm pretty high on the talent of George Pickens. The Steelers really didn't do anything, which I thought they would kind of maybe bring somebody over, trade for somebody, because they're in the talks for a lot of things, trading away Najee, whatever the case may be. But they made it very clear that he's going to be the one. And so I am buying in on his talent because he is a very talented receiver now. The character questions, I get it, but like the talent is there, and I draft talent wise. I don't draft for character issues, or else we all would have our own concerns for other players themselves. But I guess for Malik Neighbors here, I think he'll be the outlier. I think he's someone that could just have over 150 targets his rookie year with over 100 receptions, just because he's also talented here as well.
Yeah, I wanted to have Neighbors higher than I did. I've actually got him 2 tiers below this, but it's the talent's there 100%. With George Pickens, how many losses did the Steelers have to take before George Pickens is screaming for Justin Fields to come out there? Like, I just don't see him getting along with Russ.
I mean, I think this is kind of like it for Russ. I mean, I think he's got to really hone in on this. If I had to guess, really, I'd probably say by like week 11, week 12, he'd probably be asking for Justin Fields. But even then, is that really, are we getting more of an upgrade in a passer with switching from Russell to Justin? Like that's where it comes into play.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily we're putting in something better, or we're just so tired of seeing Russell Wilson that I'll take anything other than that. Mason Rudolph, they'll snag him back up from the Titans if they have to put him out there. I don't know how to feel about the Steelers team. I feel like I get excited about the running backs a little bit with Arthur Smith, but the wide receiver core, like you said, George Pickens should see a lot of targets, and he has breakaway speed. He can do great things with the ball in his hand. So maybe we see a nice 7+ touchdown season from him.
Yeah.
My next tier I have, these are the best number 2s in town. Really, they probably should be spread out among some of the other tiers, but I just like how it worked. You got Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, imagine that, and then Zay Flowers and Keenan Allen. These guys are very talented number 2s, but they have a clear number 1 ahead of them. And if you get them where they're falling, I love this, because the offense in Philly should be so much better. I'm really excited to see what happens there. T. Higgins should get a fully healthy Joe Burrow, right? Hopefully. Jalen Waddle, who knows? We need to bounce back from Jalen Waddle. Those first 2 years were not a fluke. I think if we can keep him healthy, I think there was like 3 games where he was like on and off the field. It was insane. Pulled out my hair many times. And then Keenan Allen, come on, man. I know you're old, but I think you're going to get peppered with targets in that offense, and I think there's a lot of upside with him as well, or at least consistency in that, upside, maybe middling wide receiver 2, low end top wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I mean, my next tier is basically sort of similar in yours. It's my ceiling is wide receiver 2 because I am the wide receiver 2. So again, Jalen Waddle is my number 1 guy out of this list, but again, he has Tyreek Hill ahead of him. I love Devonta Smith, but again, he's still going to be behind A.J. Brown. Keenan Allen is a very, very safe wide receiver 2, but again, DJ Moore is ahead of him. And then T. Higgins, I mean, say less, it's Jamar Chase. And then I have Zay Flowers in this tier, but it's also because I think Mark Andrews is the wide receiver 1 at the end of the day for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we do have the same tier right there. I
didn't
notice that. Next one I've got is blame it on the QB. We've got Malik Neighbors, George Pickens, and Terry McLaurin. These guys all are very talented. We could see them put out some serious numbers, but we've got a lot of question marks. I think the most talented quarterback here is with Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels, I really hope that this is a nice match. Terry McLaurin deserves a good quarterback. Malik Neighbors, you lay down the case for him. He should be taken higher than where I have him. Let's just say that. And George Pickens, he rubs me the wrong way. Maybe I'm discounting him a little bit because of that, because targets have to go somewhere, as we were talking about.
No, I mean, I think it's a great tier list. For me, my next one is flex play, but hopeful for wide receiver 2 season ending. So mine, it's Terry McLaurin here, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, Jaden Reed, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown. I have both Chiefs wide receivers here just because we just really don't know what's going to happen with the Rashee Rice news. He might be suspended for 3 games or 8 games. We really don't know. It's a lot of speculation at the moment. So I have both these guys here. my biggest standout out of this group, though, I think Terry McLaurin is, again, criminally underrated. I get it. All he does, though, is put up decent numbers, but it's with crap at quarterback. So I think this year they have the number 2 overall pick. They took Jaden Daniels. The dude's got an arm. His elbow looks weird when he throws, but that's either the case. I mean, I expect Terry McLaurin to honestly finish as a top 20 wide receiver this year. I might have him way lower than I should.
Let's freaking hope so. The guy came into the league older, so he doesn't have very many seasons left of like elite play.
No.
And then my last one, I just don't want to draft these guys high. They're going to be very volatile. Stephon Diggs, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, I loved him. I drafted him. I had him in many leagues. You know, I really got to enjoy the touchdowns that came from it. But at the same time, I'm not really wanting to follow that trend this year. The snaps and the targets when Christian Watson was on the field, it just wasn't Jaden Reed. Like, he was not the number 1 target. So I worry there's going to be regression there because a big part of his game was the touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, I played that game last year too, and it burned me. I just don't want to play
I did too. I took him in, I want to say like the round 3, round 4 turn in most of my money leagues, and I was like, I'm all in. The week 1, I was just like, I knew it. 9 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown against the Colts, and then just nothing. Just disappeared.
Yeah, I just don't want to play that game. I'm really not a big fan of a lot of the Titans right now. I'm kind of watching the ADP to see if there's going to be discounts in there, but I'm not a big fan of that. And then the Chiefs guys, Travis Kelce's, he's going to be involved enough where I think it's really going to cap how much of a number 1 we can have. Now, can Xavier Worthy turn into the clear-cut number 1? I'm sure he can. That breakout wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 season is probably going to be there for them, especially with Travis Kelce being 43 next season. 44?
He's not that old. He's not that old. He's 34, 35, I want to say.
35 or 36. He's up there. But yeah, so I think rookie year, it takes a little bit for these guys to come on. Rashee Rice, over-under, where would you put his suspension at?
I mean, I want to say it'll be like an 8-game suspension they'll issue, but it'll be reduced to 6. I think it'll be 6. I think it'll be 6 games.
I'm kind of in that like 4 to 6 range myself, so I think there's going to be discount there. I'm excited to see him plummet. Best ball right now, he's dropping down boards, but these other guys, redraft, I think they're going to be a pain in the ass to the roster. I just don't know if you're going to want to.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I'm surprised you don't have Christian Watson a lot higher.
Yeah. I know. I got a problem.
I was like, I saw Jaden Reed, and I was like, that's not Christian Watson's name.
Yeah, well, he's going to miss games inevitably, but he might just be a big enough thorn in Jaden Reed's side that you're not counting on Jaden Reed to be a wide receiver 2 for you. He's going to be more of a flex guy.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for our wide receiver tiers. We could keep going all day, but I'm sure you guys are, you're falling off because look at who we're talking about at this point. We know who the studs are. We know which ones we really want to hold on to. Stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be covering tight ends. I know, very exciting. Don't worry, we've got tons of fun. Brennan's got a handful of tricks. Some bar tricks he's going to bust out for us in between each tight end to keep you locked in. So you can't miss that. Oh, there we go. Practicing the juggling. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, we got to juggle all these jokes. Let's get out of here. You ready?
I'm ready, man.
Goodbye.